I'm Jaren Riley. I'm a pediatric spine surgeon in Denver, Colorado. My focus is on treating scoliosis. I'm blessed to work here in Denver, Colorado, where I have patients that come from all over the United States and actually all over the world, from places like Tel Aviv and Bern, Switzerland, in order to receive their care here. There were actually several reasons I eventually decided to go into medicine. One of the earliest was when I was a missionary in Brazil. And Brazil, the people are so lovely, they're so excited about everything, they really love life. But there were a lot of, especially young children, who had pretty minimal injuries, fractures, things like that, especially in their forearms, their upper arms. And I just noticed that in Brazil, as opposed to here in the United States, I would see a lot of those kids running around still with the deformity they had incurred from those injuries. And so I couldn't help but wonder why I don't see that in the United States. What's the big difference? And when I encountered, coming back to the United States, when I encountered the medical system here and how it's so encompassing and takes care of so many people, I really thought, wow, this might be my chance to do something serviceable in the United States where I live, but also around the world. So that was my earliest encounter with something where I thought, this is something I could really love forever. So I remember that pretty vividly. At the advice of a friend, actually, applied to medical school at the University of Iowa. He was there already. He had gone to the University of Utah with me. He loved Iowa, so I applied. And before I even had a chance to interview anywhere else, I interviewed at Iowa. They accepted me like a day later, and it just felt like fate. So I went to the University of Iowa for medical school. And then I thought for sure, because they were such a prestigious residency in orthopedic surgery, I thought for sure they would want me to go somewhere else. But one day they just came to me and said, hey, we'd really like you to stay for residency. And it blew me out of the water. I was so excited to stay. It meant that I was able to keep my beautiful little family in the same place for another 5 years and have some stability, get world-class training. And so I did my residency at the University of Iowa, and then I was able to go back home to where I did my college years actually at the University of Utah for my fellowship training. So there are actually a few things that led me into pediatric spine surgery. The first is, in medical school, you're going through what they call rotations, which is you sample a little bit of this kind of medicine, a little bit of that kind of medicine. And I'll never forget the first orthopedic surgery I got to witness, where we were fixing a tibia and we got to make something that was crooked and awful instantly straight and beautiful. And at the end of the surgery, the resident kind of nudged the attending and said, hey, do you think Jaren can drill this last hole and put the last screw in? And the attending hesitantly said, sure, let's give him a try. And the instant I got that drill in my hand and I was able to do a little bit of something to help fix that fracture, I was hooked forever on orthopedics. There was no going back from that one. Then, about a year later, I was working with a preeminent pediatric spine surgeon, Dr. Weinstein, and I saw my first case where we took a really crooked, twisted scoliosis, and he was able to make it straight. It was about a 6-hour surgery, and it just blew my mind, everything about it. The beauty of the child herself, the craziness of a spine that had gone so out of control, and the ability to, with utmost meticulousness, safely take that child through a surgery that straightened her out and gave her an appearance that she was proud of and physical function that she was happy with, that blew my mind again. So the combination of those two things instantly told me I was home. This was what I wanted to do forever. One of the most intimidating things for me when I finished my residency and fellowship was I felt really well trained. I felt like I knew how to tackle a lot of problems, but I was always wondering what's going to come next. What will be the next innovation that will help me deliver safer, better care to my spine patients? Will I recognize it when it's coming, and how will I adopt it safely into my practice? So my attitude toward that has been, talk to everybody I can, go to the society meetings, go to the Scoliosis Research Society, see what everybody else is doing. It doesn't matter if it's in Tel Aviv or Switzerland or here in the United States, who has the best idea and who has good data to back it up, to tell me that it's safe and that it's effective for these kids. So we have been utilizing that approach here in Colorado. using the things that I learned back in my residency and fellowship that are still valid, and then very carefully assessing the new instruments and the new implants that come out and making sure that they're safe and that they can really make a huge difference for these kids. And the best part is, it is evolving that direction. There are things that are better. They have a ways to go, but we are certainly willing to investigate those things, talk to our patients about them, see what their desires and their needs are, and try to find a good match for them as the science evolves and improves. So my hope is that my legacy at the end of all of this is just a bunch of kids who did what they wanted to do and were able to fully perform what they wanted to perform. And then in addition to that, of course, I want to be able to get to the end of my career and have all of my own kids be able to say, he did all of that, but he was still dad. He was still there, he still did everything a dad is supposed to do. And if I can accomplish both of those things, then I think that'll be success.